Hello, this is Pastor Brian Anderson from the Bridge Church bringing you another daily devotion. This time we are in Genesis 41 and 42. And in these chapters we find out that God knew that a great famine was going to come over all the land. And in view of that famine, he allowed Joseph to be sold into Egypt in order to provide for Jacob's family. But it's interesting to me to see how God was preparing Joseph for this future role that God was going to give him as prime minister. In the first place, God gave him in his youth two prophetic dreams. And in those dreams, God was indicating to Joseph that the family would eventually come down and bow down to him. Later, when Joseph was in prison, he learned of the dreams of the cupbearer and the baker and was enabled by God to be able to give the correct interpretation of those dreams. And then finally, having had experience receiving prophetic dreams and then also being able to give the correct interpretation of dreams, later on, God enables him to be able to give to the Pharaoh the dream and the interpretation that he had had. He's now in that position where finally he's able to be used of God in a very powerful and in a very impactful way. God was also preparing Joseph all along the way to rule as the Pharaoh's manager. He first served as Potiphar's manager. You remember that. And the Lord blessed him. It says the Lord was with him when he was doing that. Later, when he was thrust into prison, he became the manager over the entire prison. And again, the Lord blessed him, and the Lord was with him in that. So he's blessing him and using him in the small things in order to prepare him and get him ready for the big thing. When the time came for him to interpret Pharaoh's dreams and rule over all of Egypt, he was ready. God had prepared him for that. And I believe the same is true for us in our lives. God has a plan on how he wants to use us, and he's preparing us now to get us ready for that future role that he would like us to step into. Jesus said in Luke 16:10, "He who is faithful in a very little thing is faithful also in much. And he who is unrighteous in a very little thing is also going to be unrighteous in much." So perhaps you feel like you're sort of stuck. You want to serve God in a big way, but you're stuck in obscurity. Nobody knows who you are. You're serving in the shadows. My friend, that's just fine because you are in training. God is getting you ready for what he wants to do in your life later. Once you've learned to be faithful in the very little things, then God can give you more. So my encouragement for you today is just be faithful in the little ways that you are presently serving him. Maybe it's serving your spouse or your children, or learning to do your work as unto the Lord, or teaching that home Bible study or that Sunday school class, or discipling that one lone young believer, or posting encouraging words on social media. Just be faithful in whatever God has called you to do now. And in God's time, he's going to give you greater responsibility and use you in a far greater way. May God bless you.